Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the columnist for TheArticle, Miraj, and the sports writer, Alison Kervin. As you might imagine, the late football result means we don't have all the front pages yet, but here are a few of them. The Observer understands that the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, is poised to unveil a post-Brexit economic policy, encouraging businesses and the public to make, sell and buy more in Britain. Scotland on Sunday has seen a poll suggesting a third of people north of the border are worried they won't be able to pay essential bills over the next year, thanks to fiscal strain because of the pandemic. And we're joined tonight by Miraj and Alison Kervin. Hello to you both. Thank you very much for joining us post-football. Both of you able to watch from home. And looking at the papers, all of them with a photograph of the victorious England team on their front pages. Let's start with The Observer. A picture of Harry Kane. 2 goals from Harry Kane. Alison, back on form.
Yeah, very much so. No, it was a peculiar game in some ways, in the way the goals happened at the beginning of both halves. But it was great and lovely to see Harry Kane being right on top form again. It's funny, I was previously the sports editor of the Mail on Sunday, and as I was watching it, all I could feel was the horror of what it's like in the office when you're doing these papers and the pressure to get the pages away with these late games. So I really felt for them. But they've done well to get the big pictures on the front.
And here we go. There's the Telegraph here with, again, a photograph of the England team celebrating. Jordan Henderson there, who came off the bench and scored his first international goal, Ali. And as Alison said, it was straight in first half, straight in second half. England with a definitive victory.
Yes, and I think that that's what the country expected and wanted. England were clearly favourites ahead of this tie, and they delivered. I mean, Ukraine had a real tough match the other evening, which went into extra time. They looked pretty exhausted and battered after that match. And all the expectation was on England tonight, obviously playing in Rome, in the Stadio Olimpico, 25 years since they've made a semi-final in the Euros. So a big moment. And I think Harry Kane was really on form. He ended his drought in the Germany match. But you also had inspired choices coming in from the England manager, Gareth Southgate, bringing in Jordan Sancho, who I thought played an absolutely brilliant game on the right-hand side. Very, very impressive. Sterling again. I mean, the financial markets would say that they've been buying Sterling for some weeks because he's been so good. And, he continued that run of form. And then you had Luke Shaw delivering as well. I thought it was an excellent team performance. And I think Gareth Southgate has now sort of cemented himself since he's become England manager over the last few years as this sort of very sensible, stable, not flashy, hard-working, down-to-earth manager who really has made this team very cohesive. And he's got such a depth of talent to choose from. I mean, this was a match where he brought on a number of substitutes, as you saw in the last 20, 25 minutes. And Jack Grealish, who's been playing brilliantly in the last couple of matches, wasn't even brought on. So this is a squad with depth, with talent. And I really think that, they've got a tough match ahead of them. Denmark played well. I mean, in the Denmark game today, I think I saw one of the best crosses with the outside of a right foot I've ever seen. I mean, absolutely superb. So they can't get complacent, but I think it was a spirited performance and really quite scintillating.
Let's have a look at the front of the Mirror now, just coming in to us as well. And the Mirror, semi-gods at the headline there. And Alison haven't conceded so far this tournament. The first team in Euro history to start their campaign with 5 clean sheets. Can they continue?
Yeah, well, they've had a very good run, haven't they? I think they will continue against Denmark. It gets a bit more tricky after that when they get to the final. But then by the time you're in a final, it's anyone's game. I think the point that Ali raised there was quite interesting about the cohesion in the team. And I think there are a couple of aspects here that have really helped them. Gareth is a very cohesive manager. And a lot of the decisions he made, having Jordan Sancho on the pitch, then deciding to bring on Bellingham. So he had the 2 players from Dortmund together on the pitch. I thought was a really clever idea. And it's it's about building up these little cohesive units on the pitch that he does so well. So yeah, I think we should be. I mean, you're terrified of saying be optimistic, aren't you? But to the extent that we can be optimistic, we should be in this tournament.
And Ali, of course, they were playing in the Stadio Olimpico in Rome with very reduced crowd. England fans from the UK not able to travel. Those who are already abroad were able to go. It will be a very different atmosphere at Wembley on Wednesday.
I think it will be absolutely huge. And even though there were only a few hundred fans, England fans in there who, as you say, live in Italy, they made a lot of noise, and rightly so. I think it's going to be an absolutely fabulous occasion on Wednesday. The nation expects. I also think, I mean, Alison mentioned Gareth being a very inclusive and cohesive sort of manager. But I also think one other thing is worth mentioning. I mean, he has been very focused on really having a very strong team around him in terms of coaching staff as well. And if you even look at the FA's technical advisory committee, they've brought in outside experts, so not footballing people in. So Sir Dave Brailsford, who is obviously known for his cycling prowess, has been brought in. The head of Sandhurst Military Academy is also advising on performance. So Southgate is a manager who's not scared to go beyond the usual footballing experts to try and bring something different to the team. And I think it's paying off. I think his player selection has been absolutely exquisite. I mean, you cannot fault him. I mean, I think today people were asking questions about Sancho's inclusion, and I just thought it was absolutely a stellar performance. I mean, Sancho's just signed with Manchester United. You can see why. Sterling again scintillating, and again, you know, for someone like Raheem Sterling, I mean, his personal story is just so moving. I mean, this is a kid who came to the UK from Jamaica when he was 5, lost his father, who was murdered at 2, dreamt of always playing at Wembley. He lived in the shadow of that stadium, and you know, from Queen's Park Rangers to Liverpool, you know, and now Man City. I mean, he is really on form. He's fought hard. He's silenced his critics. He's having an absolutely wonderful tournament. Harry Kane as well. So I do think that we've had so many. Being an England fan is not easy. You always have to live with disappointment. I mean, football coming home, that iconic tune sort of says it all. But I really do think that this is a really good team, one of the best teams I've seen for many years. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm hopeful that they'll perform on Wednesday.
Ali's optimistic. What about you, Alison? Let's just have a look at the Sunday People. We came, we saw, we conquered the headline there. How optimistic are you about England's progress going forwards?
I'm optimistic about the semi-final. Obviously, we don't know who we'll meet in the final yet, but that will be a more tricky game. I mean, they did very well today. But they did very well. There's no buts. But I think we have to. There were little gaps. There were little moments when you thought, oh, if that was a better team, they'd have got through there. So it will be a tougher ask in the final. But I think we should be confident of getting there, and we're absolutely able to beat anyone in the tournament. So yeah, I think it calls for optimism.
And in terms of the style of play, there had been some questions about whether it was a bit boring, but actually this defensive approach, Gareth Southgate, we haven't yet conceded a single goal, Ali. Gareth Southgate can say, look, it's working. I'm giving you what you want.
Well, to be honest with you, I did think some of the earlier matches, particularly the Scotland game, they were pretty below par. I thought they could have done a lot better. Today, by contrast, I thought they played very, very good football for large spells of the game. I mean, their ability to keep the ball, to keep possession for large chunks of the game was very, very strong. I mean, they were playing. I mean, you could see during at least the first half of the match how many bodies the opposition had behind the ball. I mean, they had a back line of about 5. I mean, very difficult to penetrate that. And Kane got through that, you know, very early on, right at the start, to get, you know, England away. And I really thought that their keeping possession was very good. The link-up play was great. I mean, the darting runs from Sancho, from Sterling, again, going to the byline, dragging back, was really very, very good. So I'm actually impressed with this team. I thought Luke Shaw, again, you cannot fault the set-piece play. I mean, the corners, the headers that they made, the free kick that was done, I mean, they did actually play very well. I do accept Alison's point that there were a couple of moments. I mean, I know that Jordan Pickford made a a little bit of an error, but that's okay. These things happen. You've got to bounce back quickly and keep your head in a pressurized situation. So there are little niggles that they need to work on, but I think overall it was a very positive, scintillating performance. I do think that they need to be a little bit careful. I don't think they should think about the final right now. I think they should just think about the next game. And that's been Southgate's great skill, is just focus on the next game and picking the right side for the opposition in front of you at that time. And as I say, I think Denmark, they had some moments of absolute brilliance in their own game. It was a much scrappier game than the performance that England had tonight. But, one game at a time. And I think the next game is the only thing that they should be focusing on at the moment, and not the final.
Wise words. We must all heed those and not get too carried away at this stage. It must be. Alison, for now, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, but coming up, is the NHS safe enough that we can phase out masks from July the 19th? We'll be discussing that next. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. Still with me, Ali Miraj and Alison Kervin. We're going to turn to other news now. Yes, there is some. The Sunday Telegraph has a story about the PM going to axe mask laws as he says the NHS is safe. And that comes, Alison, despite warnings from the British Medical Association to the contrary today.
Yeah, it seems an odd decision, to be honest. I think on July the 19th, obviously, we're expecting everything to open up again, but I'd have thought that masks would be something that would stay longer, and I imagined we might stay with masks for most of the rest of the year. But so it seems an odd decision also to go against medical advice when we're so close to the end of it all. That just seemed remarkable.
It seems, Ali, doesn't it, that we're shifting from legislation and compulsory mask wearing to individual responsibility. There may be some guidance potentially.
That's right. Look, the Prime Minister is a libertarian. This has gone on longer than he would have liked. I mean, he has made a number of missteps in its course of this pandemic, locking down late, imposing travel restrictions later than required, and making a number of other errors along the way. But the vaccination program has been a great success. It looks like now the link between infections and hospitalizations and deaths, if not completely severed, is at least certainly dampened, which is the reason why the Prime Minister is coming out with this sort of bullish stance now. And July the 19th is now being regarded as the new Freedom Day. He's also backed up by a new Secretary of State for Health, Sajid Javid, who's making much more sort of positive noises about opening up, very different to the stance that Matt Hancock was taking. So I think all the mood music is certainly right. And I think he wants to move to a position where people take more personal responsibility, make those judgment calls for themselves. And we all know that we've seen in the past, tourists from Asia back in the day, coming to London on their summer holidays wearing masks. And we always used to think they were a little bit odd. Well, now I think it'll become part of the norm that a lot of people will continue to use masks, just because it'll make them feel more safer, particularly in confined spaces like the underground and on train.
Alison, let's turn to The Observer now. Keir Starmer, fresh from Thursday's Batley and Spen by-election victory, has a new economic plan to unveil.
This sounds, on the surface, this sounds excellent, doesn't it? The idea of a plan to buy British and to invest in British companies and develop British produce and return to sort of a very British economy. But it's a bit light on details, this article, isn't it? It states the intention without perhaps explaining with a great deal of depth exactly how that will work. It's a very worthy plan, but I can't quite see, there's not a lot of detail in here about how it will really work.
Yeah, Ali, it's about securing high-skilled jobs for the future in the green financial technology, digital media and film industries in the UK, far more public contracts to be awarded to British businesses. How bold a vision is this by Keir Starmer, given that he is much criticised so far for people not knowing what he stands for?
Well, it's not a vision yet at this stage, but what it is a step in the right direction. And this is coming from, let's remember, a real pro-Remainer in Keir Starmer, who tried to frustrate the passing of the Brexit withdrawal agreement on multiple occasions. So this is a move in the right direction. I think it shows a element of maturity from Starmer, that he's trying to pivot now and trying to move on to more patriotic ground, which is important for him to win back his former voters in the Red Wall, which they lost most recently in Hartlepool. And I also think the Labour Party is a little bit buoyed by the fact that they managed to hold on to Batley and Spen, 323 majority, which is actually better than it looked, because they held off a threat from George Galloway. They got about 8,000 votes, and the Tories ended up fighting a not particularly impressive campaign in the dying stages of that by-election. So I do think that there are positive things for Starmer. At the moment, I think he's won a temporary reprieve, so he can hold off any talk of a leadership election, at least for the summer, come back strong in the autumn season for his party conference speech. And I think this is certainly a direction of travel, but he needs to paint a much grander strategy and vision of where he wants to take this. This is just yet another sort of a policy, but it's not a vision. We need to know what his grand vision for a UK in a post-Brexit world is, and I think we're still lacking that at this stage.
We've lost Alison for the time being, but Ali, let's turn to The Observer again, and I'm not sure which edition of The Observer this one is, but it has the earlier edition, pre-Euros, had Emma Raducanu, the 18-year-old British wild card, on its front pages. And Ali, on any other day, she could have expected to be splashed across all of the front pages after her performance at Wimbledon today.
Well, absolutely amazing performance. I mean, she came out of absolutely nowhere. I'm not sure anyone had heard of Emma Raducanu before, but they certainly know about her now, and she's just sat her A-level. And the thing that I loved about her, she came onto the court as cool as a cucumber, wearing the same AirPods that I'm wearing, so clearly very cool, and just took it all in her stride. I mean, some of the shots she played were just absolutely outstanding. I mean, unbelievable athleticism and shot-making ability that she's displaying. And in the after-match press conference, I mean, only someone of that age, 18 years old, not a care in the world, taking it all in her stride, saying, you know, hey, I thought, you know, I would like to make it to week 2, so why not? Why not me? And good for her. She's trained by Andy Murray's father-in-law, Nigel Sears. He seems to have done a very good job with her. And I think she's definitely one to watch. You know, fingers crossed that she can continue this. But based on her shot play today, I think she's a really exciting talent to watch for the future.